Namaste. A question has been asked with regard to a phrase which is used by Sri Aurobindo in the synthesis of yoga. And the phrase is yoga is nothing else but practical psychology. So, yoga is practical psychology. What does it mean? That is the question. So, uh, psychology is essentially about the inner forces, the workings of the mind with all its apparatus. For instance, thoughts, feelings, will, impulses, impulsions, instincts, passions, the entire world, dream world, if we take that Upanishadic phrase, and how they impact us, how they push us, how they drive us. Modern psychology is really, as Shubindu has put it, is still on the ABC of this vast complex subject. In the Indian thought, this entire apparatus of the mind itself was regarded as an instrument and an apparatus, was called as Antahakaran, the inner instrument. And so many layers, Chitta, Manas, all these were very elaborately studied and explained. So, to that extent, if one wants to know oneself, before one can even discover oneself, one needs to know that apparatus, that ground through which we are going to cross right into the sanctum sanctorum of our soul. And in that ground, when we enter the world of mind, now mind we are not using only in terms of just the thinking process, but the entire inner psychological apparatus of human beings, we see that it has been tuned by nature for certain purposes of creation as it stands today. So, a lot of things which we say this is me are nothing else but habitual associations and habitual responses. Nature is inbuilt, programmed it like that. So if somebody says a kind word to us, even if he's trying to flatter us, to take advantage, we really get puffed up. It's how the mind has been trained like that. If somebody criticizes, we tend to react very sharply. So this is one example. As long as people are doing things which are, to our outer practical advantage, we are very nice to them. The moment they turn away, all love tends to vanish. It goes into the background. Love turns into hatred and all these things. So human mind has been at this point of time, nature has created, like I was speaking of this, attractions and repulsions. Now very often people mistake these attractions to be love, whereas they are nothing but surface charm. And nature has created it for its own inferior purposes. So people feel attracted to each other purely because of outer reasons, surfaces. And then they feel they are in love. Then they get married. And then they have a child. And then the story changes, storyline changes. Because nature says, okay, my purpose is over. Now the entire tagline is different. So once we understand this, especially because in yoga you have to cut through all these forces which are established already in nature. First, we have to take one of these forces and turn them towards yoga. This is one aspect of it. Second is this whole field has to be changed. In Sri Aurobindo's yoga, one goes one step further. So unless we know this apparatus, how are we really going to undertake the journey? We have to pick up one or the other of these forces which is very strong and prominent in nature. Then use it as a vehicle and go beyond the mind toward that which, either the soul or regions which are beyond. So, how do we do it? That's where practical psychology comes in. So, we have to study, observe how our thoughts work, around what our thoughts are turning and running. If we just look at our thoughts throughout the day, it's a wonderful study. What are the objects over which the thoughts are moving around? So, if we make a study, we'll see that most of the time these thoughts are moving around sense objects. So, when they turn towards God, they find Him very abstract, intangible, because the mind is so used to grasping things only which are connected with the senses. So, that is one of the problems of human nature. So, we have to study that how many of our thoughts are moving around the sense objects. Second kind of thought we'll see, they are nothing but conventional opinions. All that the society believes we habitually accept as right. So there are again a whole lot of thought which are conventional opinions, what is called as conventional morality. And we accept it as true and real and move along with them. Now, when we take to yoga, many of these ideas are going to be smashed because truth is hidden far behind. Truth doesn't operate according to our ideas and our views and opinions, though it can use it sometimes to express itself. But very often, if in its expression it requires them to be set aside, it will set them aside. So it's important to understand that what we call as I am thinking is actually not me who is thinking, but they are coming as currents from all around. They are the current opinions. And based on those opinions, we act, we believe, and we act accordingly. Sometimes these opinions are based on collective, experience of the race. For instance, everybody who is born will die. Okay? Somebody will say, how can this thought be challenged? Isn't it the experience of whole creation? Incidentally, look at just the facts. It is not the experience of whole creation. Even in our own life, 7 times at least, minimum, maybe 10 times, our entire body dies and is rebuilt. This is the fact. Because all the cells are changed over. None of the cells that we have at the age of 7 or 8 are the same cells with which we are born. So what happened to those cells? They died. So actually life affirms itself. So what happens that at the age of 80, 85 and then we grow old, why it happens? So the problem is not death, problem is aging, problem is why these cells can continue to really rejuvenate themselves with each change. Now when we look at that, we discover that, well, what is working upon the cells is again these collective suggestions. What are these collective suggestions? Typical. 21, 25, you should be settled. Settle means get married, have a job. By 30, you should have a child. By 40, you must have a bank balance. By 50, you should have a house and a car. By 60, you retire. Then you enjoy your grandchildren. Now, what is happening is constantly the mind is giving these suggestions to the cells. So the cells are acting accordingly. Take, for instance, an illness. The moment there is an illness, oh, this is a life-threatening illness. I am going to die. Now, this is the whole play which is going on, and nature loves to let this play go on. For thousands, 10,000s of years, it will let it go on. Why? Because for nature, time is like, not like us, 80 years life. For nature, it's like, okay, 10,000, 1 lakh years, it doesn't matter to nature. So at some point, when we start looking at things afresh, then we discover, no, I was not thinking in the right way. Why was I thinking like that? Even my sense experience was very limited. For instance, there is another way to look at life when people ask about death. So, my answer is, this what mother had written somewhere very beautifully, and completely, one can just look at it straight away that there is no death. So people wonder, how come there is no death? There is no death, there is just a changing of existence from one mode of living to another mode of living. So where is death? So when you start looking life afresh, so what is yoga? How do we change the attitudes and approaches in yoga? By picking up the thoughts and putting them into new combinations. So there are, for instance, when somebody, we love and then there is a hurt to the ego, the natural reaction is hatred, anger. Now this is the usual reaction. Can we change it? Can we respond instead of anger with love, greater love, with compassion, with understanding? This is not usual response, habitual response. But if we can do it, how to do it? By applying a greater will. Even the will that is operating within nature is not a will, it is desire self. So, but once we take it that no, I need to bring in more compassion. Now, initially it will take some time, but after some time the nature gets tuned to it. And it begins to automatically develop compassion, charity, goodwill towards all. So basically what is practical psychology? By that, what is meant is that all the psychological forces of thought, feelings, will, they act in a certain fixed way determined by the past evolution of nature, which is largely governed by the animal processes. So if you step on somebody's toe, either the person will cry or react. This is how animals react. If it's a snake, it'll bite you. If it's a poor little creature, it'll cry, feel crushed. But there is a third response you can give. Now, this is what nature is not tuned to. How to do that? So you pick up the same combination of thought which is reacting in this way and you turn it in another direction. For instance, when there is a feeling of love which gets hurt, and there is lot of feelings which are arising inside. Now, sentimental people will begin to, weep. So you turn this energy upward toward the divine, toward the source. Then you will get back a much more purer, truer, and beautiful power of love right from the source. And then your responsibility will change. So, according to yoga, psychology as we understand today is an understanding within the framework of man. But yoga admits that there are ranges of possibility of thought, of feelings, of will, which are beyond this frame. So as we go beyond the frame, we bring in new elements into our nature and start changing our nature as it stands today. To close with, let's say, surrender. People are very much, before surrender, there is a process called individualization. People don't talk about it. They just say, "Hum samarpan kar diya, we have surrendered to the divine." You ask them what you have surrendered. There is nothing which is yours. Everything that we are having, thought, feelings, are all collective conventions. There is nothing to surrender in that. They are all collective opinions and viewpoints of the society. You can't tell the divine that I did Karwa Chauth ka vrat and I have surrendered to you. You have to first question, why should you do Karwa Chauth ka vrat? What is the point in doing it? There may be a truth, there may not be a truth. It may just be a social convention which has outlived its age. Actually, if you go into it, you will see that I'm giving one example. There are numerous we can give. Why do people do Karwa Chauth ka vrat? Have you seen where it is done? It is done on the border areas. Ask anybody in Odisha, do you do Karwa Chauth ka vrat? They will say no. We don't know it. We know what Savitri. And ask in Rajasthan, Punjab, Gujarat, Karwa Chauth. Why? They're the border areas. So women knew that their husbands could die in a battlefield. So they were trying every possible means, including like a collective formation. So when we understand what is the principle behind everything, we begin to get individualized. Then we can accept it, not accept it. We can discover a greater power, as we see in Savitri, that the greatest power which can protect is love, not, just pleasing a god arbitrarily. So then we start discovering new possibilities within us. That there is a greater power which can safeguard. Like, what is Savitri? It's about that. The power of love raised to its nth height which can protect you even against death. So that way we have to pick up things within nature, take a relook at them, give them new combinations. Very fascinating actually. Give them new combinations, become more conscious, and then open their doors to new possibilities. And if you can do it, it becomes a yoga. Same feeling, when you turn to the divine, it is not different feeling, it's the same feeling. It starts from vital. Very difficult to start with the psychic bhakti. So in the vital, when you turn to God, what are the usual reactions? Viraha, Vedana, Abhiman, Milan. That's how Mira Bai sings, no? Jo main aisa janti preet kiye dukh hoye, nagar ढिंढोरा पीटती प्रीत ना की जो कोई, एरी मैं तो प्रेम दीवानी मेरो दर्द ना जाने कोई. When Mira's bhakti deepens into the psychic state, by this means she was turning her vital world of feelings towards God. But in the same human way, which one would say towards any human being, that you are not listening to me, you are not responding. I am constantly telling you, sending you SMS messages, you are not replying to a single one. But you continue to do that. Then a time comes when you cross over. And then Mira sings, Mere to Gurdhar Gopal Dusro na koi. So this is the way it is transmuted. When the same feelings are turned. It's not that yogi has some other new material from somewhere. The same material, will. Normally the will is disintegrated into the desired self. So it becomes weak. Because desire want to hold things outwardly. They want to possess. So why do you want to possess? Because you'll get a joy out of it. So what does yogin say? Oh, you want to get joy? Okay, I'll teach you a way where you can get objectless ecstasy. Objectless ecstasy is ananda. So when you have the ananda, you can take anything and take the delight out of it. But you are not asakt with it. Because you are not dependent on that object for your joy. You are free. You are having the object. And you're relating with it. There is the joy of it, but you're not asakt with it. So it is psychology in the vastest and the truest and the deepest sense of the word. So, in that sense, yoga is practical psychology. I could multiply the examples, but it's just a short reflection. Thank you.